how we can partner with a river, how we can partner with a forest in order to build something that it is beneficial for our goal together. And what could be the goal of another ecosystem other than to survive? Obviously. So how can I build my goal together with your goal?
Through sustainability in an enterprise kind of setting, in an economic kind of setting.
So in a way, we go back to concepts that are not new. I mean, if we look back at old spiritual beliefs, all of them were mentioning nature elements with a high element of importance, and it was a certain respect attached to that. Either that they were called deities in some religions, or it was another type of approach towards them. Like for instance, they were considered alive able to interact with people, or they were elements of archetypal relationships, like for instance in the symbolism of shamanic nature, and so all traditions somehow they try to find a place and a way to interact with nature elements so that to keep them as participants into the lives of all of us. Now, that participation in the lives of all of us has been forgotten at some point in time. And now it is reinvented or redefined. But we still try to conceptualize how to have this relationship in which we do have respect and we acknowledge that we are not alone and just users of whatever else than a human being. That is
Yes.
the era in which we need to conceptualize differently the approaches. And it is an effort. I don't know if you saw that, but it is an effort. And interesting, technology is creating the contrast that helps us. Because you mentioned about consciousness, but the whole concept of artificial intelligence now revolves again around the topic of what is conscious, what is self-conscious, who else can be conscious but a human being, etc. So we are under pressure from different technologies and developments in different technologies to go back to concepts that we find in psychology, in theology, in philosophy, but also in law, and law is of immediate application. So it touches the life of each of us. Not to mention politics, because we discussed that, we will leave that aside.
I definitely have to mention at this point Isabella's book about the digital thinking of tomorrow, because she a couple of years ago, before I heard the not the first time the word AI, but the first time I heard it in the context of ChatGPT and machine learning and stuff like that. She wrote a book, and she was asking already these kind of tough questions. I don't know if Isabella, you want to share anything at this point.
Thank you, Manuel. Yeah, it's a old book already, considering today's fast-paced development. Yeah, it's been 2 years, and I talk about everything, Professor Leaua. You were talking about the spiritual side, how the machines work with humans, and what is consciousness, and how society to progress in order to capture the idea of what should we do moving forward. I totally agree with you about this nature thing. I think we came from this perspective. In the Eastern world, it's always consistent. They work with nature. And you mentioned at the beginning, I think we are relatively ignorant in many senses, and we don't understand nature that well, not to saying how to manage nature, or because that's, I think, in the recent century, we try to portray human as this kind of the master of the world. We try to change the environment. We try to reduce carbohydrate emissions. I mean, that's not something I think it's completely up to us. So it's a calling, my book, basically to return to our human nature, how to be a ethical being, or how to return to our core, inner core, to behave in this world, and to respect and to collaborate. It's not just about we change things, interact. Yeah. And I actually just met a profession from the forest industry. And it's a depressing story because when you really understand how nature works with that consciousness in your human, conscious, we're not close to, to manipulate nature. We need to know how to work with it. And he's a very spiritual person, and he got a little depressed from his professional work because you see how ignorance our human beings are. We try to make goals, numbers, and it's not practical at all in the foreseeable future. So things like that happening in the world today in every way. I think in technology, in sustainability, in innovations. Yeah, I really appreciate professionals like you to bring human nature, human consciousness to the discussion, and to understand the future with prevention, not just to react.
I think it's a cooperation, and we use very rare this kind of concept because we are more like confrontational and competitive, which is competitional. So we somehow antagonize because these are antagonizing positions with their role in motivation, with their role in evolution. Of course, every single organism has this kind of phase in which it fights for something. We need to fight for survival, for instance, which is absolutely normal. But other than that, cooperation, it's a concept of evolutionary, I would say, evolved relationship. The cooperative relationship is that in which I do not compete with you. I team up with you and I compete with the current situations that I do not like, and I'm trying to improve it and reach different goals. So it's competing not in between, but for a purpose. And there is a beautiful book that I love of an author. It's a French author. It's called Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And he wrote a beautiful book which is well known internationally, The Little Prince. But a part of it, he wrote another one which is called La Citadelle, the citadel, the city, the big city, let's put it this way, the fortress. And in that book, there is a quote, and it says like this: if you want to unite people, give them to build together a tower. If you want to divide them, give them grains to divide between themselves, to split themselves, give them something to share. Sharing a goal, moving towards a common type of destination, it's something that allows both the satisfaction of cooperation, but also the satisfaction of competition, because you do not compete with the other. It's not antagonic, but you compete with the current situation and try to move towards a better one. We try to build something. And to me, once that we decide at generational level at some point in time, now there are some little signals, but if we will be decided at general level on the idea of personhood of nature elements, we will have to establish relationships, and we will have to think, what are these relationships? They are cooperative or they are competitive. If they are cooperative, and for now it's almost like the slavery of nature for the use of man, which is a little bit not exactly the I would say sustainable for sure it's not, but it's not exactly named as such. And it may be, a shock for somebody to think in these terms. But if we think in terms of cooperation, and then we can see how we can partner with a river, how we can partner with a forest in order to build something that it is beneficial for our goal together. And what could be the goal of another ecosystem other than to survive? Obviously. So how can I build my goal together with your goal into a common goal in which both of us are surviving, in which both of us are thriving? So this kind of mentality change in which cooperation with nature element is to be designed, I think it's still to be developed in terms of predictive legal thinking.
That's very interesting. And I want to, shift a little bit the conversation toward, because I know you're working also with digital technologies, with blockchain and with smart contracts. I guess Ethereum will be the common name that you use for that. And I know you see a link between sustainability and smart contracts. We talked also about the decentralized autonomous organization. How do you see the technology playing a role in, and this is common to also what Isabella is saying, because there is an ethical and spiritual part, and there is a practical part of the technology.
Mhm.
How do you see it?
Well, I don't think it's a coincidence, but I cannot demonstrate a link with that. But for sure, what's happening is that the technology is developing the type of change in mentalities that are useful for sustainability purposes. So it's very interesting. Whether it is a coincidence or not, I do not know, but for sure it's happening. And for instance, what the blockchain community did is they developed this kind of relationships which are highly cooperative. The DAOs, the distributed autonomous organization, are non-centralized. So when a certain group is not centralized in terms of decision, and the purpose of the decision making is to reach consensus, then you are not speaking anymore about who's the boss. You're not speaking about authority anymore. You're just speaking about beneficial to the group and survival of the whole ecosystem. The whole terminology in the blockchain community is somehow very much transferable into other type of group behaviors. Sustainability, a sustainable decision-making process. Governance, distributed autonomous organizations are challenging the typical governance system, and they are trying to get to a different one, which is more flexible. Not for no reason. In Switzerland, the development of the legislation and then the social acceptance of the blockchain technology and other collateral type of use cases for it, it has been very strongly accepted and immediately accepted. It's one of the forefront countries. Why? Among other things, because it is one of the countries which is highly functional still today at the level of referendums, which are social decisions taken by group decision and not centralized decision. And that kind of decision of the group, of the population on various elements, it's involving everybody into a system which is not as centralized as in other places. And what does it do? It does that people are much more involved into the decision making, and therefore the decision once taken is more resilient. It is facing less social resistance, one that everybody has been involved into making it, and it is not detached and put into a very central position, very remote, and somehow detached from the local population. So that kind of thinking in the distributed autonomous organization in the blockchain system, it's one element. The second element for blockchain is the fact that you can, speaking about smart contracts, you can have relationships that are automated. The word smart, I'm not sure how it has been suitable here, because in fact we are speaking about automated relationships. So you have relationships which are once put it in place, they stay there. Now think at your organism, as you as a human being. You have two systems. You have the neurovegetative system, which is automated. You breathe automatically. Your heart beats automatically. You have during your sleep, your processor, your brain is processing unintentionally some elements that need to be processed. Your whole body goes into regeneration without exactly you asking for that. So you have some automated part in your body system, and then you have your whole brain attention and your whole body while you are awake, being able to produce something else that you are willing to do because you are not busy into dealing with whatever it is automated. Now, this kind of situations can be perceived as useful in different type of other human relationships, group relationships, in which you automate whatever it is repetitive, wherever it is important to have a certitude. You need to make sure that your heart beats. Doesn't matter. It doesn't stop. Period. You need to have the heart beating. You have to have this relationship between the blood and the cells of the heart, so to feed those cells and to make sure that they are functional and that they are keep being functional over time. So automating what is essential gives you space to be more creative and more functional on other elements, because you do not control everything consciously. You let some elements to be automated. That can be done also in the social organism, and some elements can be automated. And this is the concept of how actually the blockchain technology and the smart contracts that are based on this technology somehow may help communities. And for that reason, there are a lot of use cases in the public sector, because you can automate some of the functionalities. And then once that you automate them, you can release time and energy and efforts for something more creative. That is one of the concepts in which I think the technology helps. And the other one is artificial intelligence. And on artificial intelligence, the discussion can be very broad, but my elements are just two very simple ones. One is that when we create something and we are able to understand that we can create something, and that something is interacting with us and helping us, and that kind of interaction is possibly one cure to the excessive consumerism, something that somehow will rebuild the respect to whatever we create, whatever we build. So I think it will help us in building some respect to the outcome of whatever we are doing in terms of creation, and we will throw less away. I mean, I'm just trying to look at, for instance, my telephone. If my telephone will react with me and have this kind of relationship, please don't throw me away. I'm still alive. I'm still good. I don't need it necessarily to be changed this year. I could stay with you another 2-4 years. Would I do this to my dog? I'm not sure. So if we somehow able to be more conscious in the relationship with objects, trying to use for that reason the interactions that they can have with us, possibly we will be helping ourselves with more respect into their existence once that we have them in our lives. I know it's sometimes I'm a dreamer. I recognize that, but I think that we cannot afford to be high level professionals at this moment, thinking like robots. I think we will build robots to do that automated part of our thinking, and we are going to be able to release part of our brain to something that goes to creative, useful, positive outcomes with our minds.
Thank you so much. Totally agree. We cannot afford to have those high-level positions to be act as robots. We need creative, we need empathy, we need real human beings to connect with our mind, our soul, and to develop new solutions that can deal with what we're talking about today. And we have a lot of students, people, young professionals looking to get into the career in the sustainability and digital transformation. I think that's already a very great piece of advice. And in addition to that, please, if there's anything you want to share with them.
As an advice, well, I can only tell one thing that happened to me, and it's not the first time I'm telling it. We have the habit of thinking as mentors and thinking that we can learn from one that it is older than us, which I believe it's not exactly complete. It is true, but it's not complete. I think we have to go and understand that we can learn from those that are younger than us as well. And I think that learning and information in relationship with the transfer of it, or even in the relationship with creation, what you can create, should forget about age bias. And we should work as a group in which the thought value is not age related. I've learned a lot. That was my story. I learned a lot from my kid when he was 12, 13 years old, and he was just thinking at a number of issues completely different than I would have expected him to think, because I was somehow blocked into the role of the adult that knows more than the other one, and he was shifting my perspective constantly, and I found profound value into that, because once that you can challenge your own perspectives with the help of another, then you can have a richer perspective, a broader one, and that one may help you find solutions. So to me, intergenerational cooperation and shifting the paradigm of learning towards the life and reaching the peak at the end of your life um, has to be adjusted. And zigzagging in between generations, I think it's a much more useful type of relationship. If you look at, for instance, again, at nature, and you look at how ecosystems are functional, you will never say that an old elephant is much valuable than a young, I don't know, rabbit. It's not about value. It's about each of them having a role in the concept of the whole system. So you have to identify that. And this has been once again extremely frequently taught into all spiritual beliefs. It is part of our philosophical traditions. We simply have to go back and look a little bit at the anchors of our reflexes nowadays, which are not exactly very old, and try to see if we cannot look at the value of children, who are extremely high ethical persons, usually very, very high ethical persons. We can look at teenagers who have courage and the will to take chances, which are skills that somebody at a different moment in life can learn from or remember or being anchored into. And the opposite, I think this would be my advice. Try to have respect to thought that it's coming irrespective the source, as long as it is a respectful one.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. This cross-generation, cross-disciplinary, broaden our horizon, right? Broaden our perspective from intro perspective, intro or self-reflection. This is enormous valuable, I think, in today's time, and also very, very much needed.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you again, Professor Leaua, for your spiritual and practical sharing today. Really enjoy it. And thank you so much for everything, your time and your effort. And thanks to our audience for joining us as well. Make sure you tuning in every week for a new episode of AKFI's Actionable ESG Talk series. Where you can gain perspectives on how to mitigate risk and create value by integrating ESG and digital transformation. Until the next one, bye for now. Bye, Manuel. Bye, Professor Leaua.
Bye-bye. Thank you.